Welcome back. This is part 2 of FEC TV's Education Special. We've got another special guest here, Aisling. I'm going to talk about why we're pissed off at universities. So I'm going to start us off with the first question. Why do people actually go? Jay?
Notionally for an education, but realistically, I think a lot of people go to university for sex, so they don't have to get a job immediately, and because they don't know what they want to do with their lives, and hence we're talking about university, I suppose.
Okay, Barry, you never went to university. Tell me more. Sorry to not putting you down, of course.
I didn't even get close to it. The gates rattled when I passed. Yeah, why do people go? I think an awful lot of it, there's different instances, but an awful lot of it too is parental pressure.
You think it's the pressure from the adults on putting people down?
Of what they think that their son or daughter should be.
Do you think it's a good thing or a bad thing?
Absolutely not. I think it's a desperate thing.
But I suppose as a parent, Barry, what are your thoughts? I mean, you told me your sons went to university. Did you put any pressure on them, or you let them go?
Absolutely none whatsoever. And they all went off and did different things for 2 years before they went to university, except one.
Right. So okay.
So.
I mean, Aisling, you're just out of university, pretty much.
Yep.
What's your opinion? Why did you go yourself? What's the purpose behind it?
I went to go to get that piece of paper.
You went to get
End of story.
Just the piece of paper.
No, I was one of the lucky ones that did know what I wanted to do from day one. Like when I was 13, I knew what I wanted to do. I wanted to go into media, TV, film, and luckily, I had a strong support system behind me at home to push me in terms of my exams and stuff like that to get into college. And actually,
so that almost was pressure that was worthwhile.
Yeah, it was. But there's a lot of parents out there that do pressurize children going into the wrong type of colleges just to be in college, which I don't agree with at all.
Do you think that's also a pressure that comes from the systems before that, the secondary school system, for instance?
Most definitely, yeah, because it's all about the CAO. There's never, when I was in there was no ever discussion that you could go on and do a FOSS course and then go in the back door. I think nowadays it is kind of coming about, I'm 5 years out of school now, secondary school, and it's now coming about that you can go on, do your FOSS course, do your PLC, and actually get into college that way. There's not so much pressure on people that aren't academically inclined in that sense. So
but you made a very valid point there, Aisling, when you said that you knew what you wanted to do from 13, and as you said, not everybody does, but the very fact that you knew what you wanted to do and your parents supported you in what you wanted to do, not what they thought you should do, that's making my point. Let the students work it out for themselves, and the parents support
It's about
them.
making the choice.
But without that though, if my parents hadn't put me into a film school, I wouldn't have known what I wanted to do at the same time. So this comes back
But did they put you in at 13?
Yeah, they put me into a 2-week course when I was 13 during the summertime, which is getting back to the point earlier about bringing in students into areas that they might like in secondary school and during the summer. And then that opens up the door then when they're in 4th year, whether they want to go out and get work experience in those different areas.
I'm going to go just sort of circle back to the question at hand here, though. A lot of the criticism that comes from the media around here is that the people go to university, as you said at the start, Jay, for sex, for drugs, pissing about their lives. A lot of the criticism of universities, of university students, comes about that people think that they're wasting time, and especially, I suppose, in this country, wasting taxpayers' money to go to university. I mean, I personally went, enjoyed it. I thought it was a growing experience. But, Barry, coming from that perspective of being out of it, having your sons going into university, in terms of a waste of time, in terms of going and not getting anything out of it, I mean, what is your opinion on that?
I think the whole education system is keeping kids back and students in 3rd level.
Let me just jump in there. Would you then be pro people going into university at a later stage of their life?
This thing, for most students now, they tend to go to university and then go off around Australia for a year and that kind of thing. I think they should do it the other way around.
So you'd have the
get a chance to grow up and get a feel for life and get a feel and then come back and...
I'd like to take a quick little thing here. Of the 3 people here who did go to university, did any of you have a gap year at any point? Because I certainly didn't.
No.
No, I didn't. I went straight from school into college, and after finishing my degree, not really sure still what I was going to do. I did a master's, so no gap year.
No gap year. So that's sort of almost, it's kind of to the point that you're thinking, Barry, that having the gap year first might sort of, I suppose, get people a better idea of what they want to do.
You need a chance to grow up and see a bit of life, you know what I mean? I can only speak from my own two.
Aisling, come in on that, please.
At the same time though, if you give a 17 or an 18-year-old a chance to go off on a year-long holiday, could totally wreck any chances of going into third level education
I
after
completely
that.
disagree. I think that's the point I'm making. I think we don't trust our young people enough to make their own minds and make their own decisions, and that is exactly what is wrong.
If we go back to the gap year thing, though, you know, what about the low-income people? You know, what about the affordability of this gap year? Because certainly from my experience, it was generally the toffs. They were out there talking about all the aid work they did in Africa and all this, but it's paid for by daddy's money.
No.
Now, Barry, you're shaking your head. Come on in on this.
My son went off. He'd got a student loan of a couple of grand, got a ticket out of it, went off with €1,000 in his pocket, and came back after a year, paid his own way everywhere he went with work, and made it happen.
The flip side to this as well, though, just in terms of the gap year, is that somebody might finish school at 18, they say, okay, I'm going to take a year out. It can also go another two ways. One is that they may just go on the dole for the year and do nothing, and that's no good. And some people will do that. The other thing is that they'll go out, they'll get a job, they'll have more money than they had before, and then possibly lose out for many, many years on getting an education that would be very valuable.
I'm going to bring you in for a little question here. I mean, in terms of why we're actually going, one thing we haven't really touched on here is the courses and what people actually choose. You know, is that something really, Aisling, that you said yourself, you were well aware of what you wanted to do? A lot of the criticism comes out that people are choosing courses they have either no interest in or they drop out later on. You know, where do we go with this for either cutting down those courses or providing something that will have a real benefit post-university?
Right, well, I'll just bring in, right, with my own course, it was the first of its kind in the country to be established, TV and radio, in the IT Tralee, and there was another, like, because we're the first ones brought in, we were always the guinea pigs. So we didn't get actually what we should have in terms of our skill sets. We didn't get put into practical work when we should have been out doing practical work. But on the flip side of that, mental health nursing in the IT Tralee is absolutely fantastic. They spend the latter 2 years, their degrees actually well, for the first 2 years they study the material, then the last 2 years they actually implement it.
So would you say
which is
that
great.
the solution, I suppose, or certainly a pro thing to do would be to bring in more of the sandwich courses, bring in courses that you have the practical element built into it in the first instance, which would give you, Barry, those practical real-world skills that you're talking about, but you could still have the student experience.
That makes a lot more sense.
From day one, definitely they should be put into practical situations, because then it'll actually, because they're put into the real life working situation and the world that they're actually going to be in, then they'll be able to make up their minds for themselves whether it is a good idea to whether to go on and continue with the course within their first year when they're naive, not when they're stuck in the institution having to stay there because their parents have forked out, let's say, $3,000 a year on accommodation. I think that's where it needs to come in.
You know that full well.
And that's why I agree with FOSS courses. FOSS courses are the best. Bring back FOSS, pump money into FOSS courses.
Not a bad idea.
I honestly think.
One of these things, though, here, so I'm going to move on a little bit here. One of the things is the courses themselves. We're talking about 3, 4 years, potentially 5 years if you carry on with a master's. Are they too long in themselves? Are we waiting too long before we get these people out into the workforce? Barry?
Absolutely, completely. I mean, anybody that's been through a university, or that I've seen going through university, the amount of hours they actually study for in the first year is zilch, or close to zilch. Jay would be a good man to come in on that.
I would. I was gonna jump in there, and to be honest with you, that is one of the reasons to go to university. You're 18, you know, you want to have a good time, you want to have a laugh, and this is a way that you can do it.
Yeah, but costing the taxpayer $7,000 a year per person.
Absolutely, but in a realistic kind of way, as long as that option is out there, as long as we can do that, my God, you'd almost be a fool not to do it.
Yes, but that's
you know,
already-
What about the
minimum work?
What about the
you know,
difference, though, if we go on this, Ashley? What about the difference, really, between you've got the courses like, you know, say arts and humanities, where you can have that growing time, but you need to develop that skill set, as opposed to something like medicine, accounting, or legal studies. You know, those type of skills where you need that length of time to get the knowledge in. What about those skills?
Well, maybe then there should be an overhaul of the whole the amount of time that you need for a degree course. Because I do think it's very important for people going into college to experience college life, be out living on their own for so many years, try and support themselves and get part-time jobs and try and balance the home life with study life as well, and with the socialising aspect as well. So maybe for the people that would have been more focused, like myself going into college, I would have been a little more focused than, let's say, a couple of other people that I entered in with in the first 2 years. Maybe just have degree courses that you can get within the 2 years, and also degree courses that are 4 years long. I don't know how it would work, whether it would work.
Well, I'm
but
going to
maybe
jump in
it's
here.
a suggestion.
We have already a system of fast track studies. You can do these fast tracks at certain universities, not widespread at the moment, but they are coming in. We can do a 4-year course in 2 years. You can do a 3-year course in 1 year. That's coming in. Does that put too much pressure on the students, Jay?
Having a fast track course.
Having a fast track course, is it adding too much pressure to condense 4 years into 2?
I don't think it is if they're actually motivated for what they're doing. If the course, if they're going to college, you know, not to go on the beer for a couple of years, if they're actually going there because they want the education.
I'd
it's
argue
not
the
gonna
beer
be-
is an important part.
Well, so would
But
I, but not
yeah.
to everybody.
But
not
hold
to
on,
everybody.
look how
Some
many-
people
look how
are
many
just
more
Barry,
people-
come in.
dying
Look
to
how,
go
look
for
how
it.
many more people we could get into the university. Like if a 4-year course can be done in 2 years. I know somebody that did 2 degrees simultaneously,
Sure.
right? If a 4-year course can be done in 2 years, look at the amount of people, more people we could get into the universities.
It brings it
I
on
mean,
to
why
interesting-
why shouldn't a lecturer now work at least 10 months of the year as opposed to 6? Why is it that people in education are earning 36 euros per hour, the highest in the
Hang on a second,
Because-
Ashley, jump on in.
Because there's a whole semesterization in colleges. You can't just overhaul that.
bollocks?
That'll cost, I don't know how
Bollocks.
much in resources to actually sort
Another
out.
thing
In
as
my
well, and I
opinion.
can actually say this from having worked in a university for several years, people who go on to become lecturers, one of the reasons they do it is because they don't want to work 10
In the
months a
real
year.
life.
Yeah, this is it. And look, this is a deeply
Yeah, but they
entrenched thing
shouldn't
as
have
well.
that option.
Ashley, come on in. Cut Barry off, please. tell me more. Tell me more about this.
They, to go back to the point, you know, like with you know, people like going into actual education, right? They should be allowed to have their own choice. So at the end of the day, if they want to do 4 years, do 4 years. At the end of the day, if they want to do 2
Right.
years, 2 years. And it's the institutions then that need to have the overhaul of
What
that.
about the online side of things? Because people can now do a lot of the courses online. How does that could change the picture?
Sure.
That could change the picture. I think Barry's argument, and I remember him telling me this a while, but the argument here is though, yes, you want choice. Absolutely. I
Want
completely
choice,
agree
yeah.
with you on that. But the fact is it's choice that at the moment in Ireland is on the back of the taxpayer.
Correct,
Yeah.
exactly. And it's costing $7,000 a year to put a student through. And he said, I think I'll take 4 years. So you're after costing the state 14,000 euros extra. One. The second thing is you're after taking up the space in the university where we could get an extra person into it. And you think, fuck it, I'm on the beer, you know, it's okay, you know.
I got to
You
roll
can't
of the
do
eyes.
that.
I got to roll of the eyes. Come on in.
Yeah.
But that's because there's no other option.
Correct.
If you want to get a degree or a master's, you have to go through X, Y, and Z.
That is the point. There
and
is
that's
no other option
that's why it needs an overhaul. But
correct.
how much is that going to cost?
to
that's-
overhaul the system.
Yeah. Which the state is
I
not in a
gotta use-
position to do that.
The
So why
state-
are we even
it
discussing
shouldn't
this in
cost
the first place?
It shouldn't
then?
cost anything.
You know?
It shouldn't cost anything, Ashley. Why?
Well-
Because we have a huge bureaucratic system. That should be done in a week.
Tell them.
I am telling
Tell
you.
them, go up,
I'm
yeah,
telling
do
you.
it,
The
do
system
it,
is fucked.
you know?
It needs to be changed in a
Yeah,
week.
and that's
JJ, you're shaking your head.
Yeah,
Come on
well, one aspect of it that we're not really taking on board right here in terms of speaking about having the practical element to it, doing things in 2 years rather than 4 years, is that not all these courses are the same. There's a big difference between a liberal arts
Yeah.
course like
Sure. Well,
history or English or
Absolutely.
philosophy as opposed to something like medicine,
Yeah.
engineering, science. So you can't actually just tar them all with the
absolutely.
same brush.
I agree with that.
But
But
that's,
well, Ashley,
that's
come
where
on in.
the choice comes in.
Yeah.
If if you do like medicine, for example, you can't just go and do a 2-year course and be qualified to be a doctor. Like, you know what I mean?
So should we
But for more-
bring back loans? Should we get these people paying for it themselves rather than the grant system?
They might take it more seriously in that case, to be honest with you, and
But
they
you
have the
know,
situation.
lest
that's
it- lest
the
it
way
brilliant.
the
be-
grant
lest
system-
it be misunderstood, like that I'm against people going out in the piss and having sex. I have no problem with that at all.
But what you're
but
saying is
just
do it
get
on
your
their own
2 years
money.
work. Yeah, exactly.
Do
Do
it
your
on their
2
own
Get your
years work.
money's worth.
So
Do
is
you-
that something we
and
should
then
bring
figure
back in? In terms of our overhaul of the education system, in terms of what we've been speaking about now, we've all agreed it's about choice. We've all agreed that there's something needs to be done, it needs to be overhauled. Are we saying that these people need to pay for it themselves?
No.
Ashley? No?
No.
Jay?
I would say the likelihood
I'm not
is
saying
that
that
they
at all.
will be paying for it themselves.
Yes.
Like the
That's-
UK?
that's the
like I
realistic
paid for it
thing.
myself?
But that
Yeah.
doesn't
That's the
answer the question. The
practicality.
question is, are we saying that people should pay for it themselves? No, because that means if you get somebody that's wealthy and they turn around and
Yeah.
say, I'm going to take 8 years to do this,
That's
and I'm
their
paying the
choice.
money to hang around, yes, it's their choice, but what about the person that should be inside there while they're arsing around?
that's
You're
also
taking up
so-
another space.
What did they do with the grants offices here? Shoved it up to Dublin. Now they have
Yeah.
how many applications going to the Dublin office? Not enough resources. That's what the lecturers should be doing on their time off during summer. Sitting in there, filtering through grants, seeing the people that actually do want to go to college, the people that are actually going out of their way to apply for a grant takes approximate approximately like 4 months to do. So that means
Yeah.
that people are actually arsed at 17, 18 to actually go into college, get that money and do it.
And we should be supporting
So-
those people.
Yeah. Overhaul the grant.
Overhaul the grant system.
Overhaul the grant system.
Lovely thing.
There's free money there. Everybody's entitled to it mostly now because of the way the recession is at the minute. So get the resources
So
in.
why not bring back fees for the people who can pay them and keep the grant system subsidised for those who can't? Why not do that? Because that's a similar situation to what we have in the UK.
Desegregation, you know.
Well, it is decent, but the segregation is there already. The segregation isn't going away. You're always going to have
But
rich
regardless,
But
and
how are you
poor.
actually, how are you going to decide who gets the money and who
Means
doesn't?
tested.
Means test on the basis
Which
of the
is-
parents. What if the parents are refusing to pay for their child's education? Because that could happen. That is something that
Or refuse to
isn't-
sign the papers.
or
Or
refuse
to-
refuse to even
yeah.
be involved
And
in
once
the
they
first place.
actually, once they refuse to get involved, then it's a question: how do you take care of those people who want to
Th-
go to
this
college?
is-
And then there's
this
an
is something-
incentive on top of that for
But hold
the
on, you're
parents
gonna
to
wait
say,
for the
well,
point.
look,
Hold on a second. Look,
Yeah.
this is something that's going to run and run. This is a topic that is really pertinent to the people out there who are watching this. So what I'd like to propose, email us in, write to us, go to FEC TV and give us your opinions, and we will come back to this. I'd like to thank you all for this show. Join us for part 3 coming up soon. Thank you.